Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really critical, but I think often sort of misunderstood, area of workplace safety, lone working.
Yeah, it's one of those terms people think they know, but the reality is complex.
Exactly. We're not just talking about someone being physically on their own. We're going to dig into the specific risks and, crucially, the controls employers must have in place. We're drawing heavily on professional guidance here, like the UK's HSE documents.
Which are pretty thorough on this.
They are. So our mission today is really to translate that sort of dense guidance into clear, practical insights for you.
Because whether you manage field engineers, home workers, retail staff, the responsibilities change significantly when someone is unsupervised.
Okay, so let's unpack the core definition first. What is a lone worker? Well, officially, it's someone working by themselves, isolated from other workers, and without close or direct supervision.
And it's key to say up front, working alone isn't automatically dangerous in itself.
Right. It all hinges on the activity being done. The risk comes from the task, mostly.
But what's really interesting, I think, is that word isolation. It's subtle.
How so?
Well, it's not always about being miles from anyone, like, say, a farmer in a remote field. That's one type. Definitely true isolation.
Okay.
But think about a postal worker doing their rounds on a busy street. They're surrounded by people, right?
Yeah, members of the public.
Exactly. Not colleagues, not people trained or, frankly, obligated to help if that worker collapses or gets attacked. They're isolated from support.
Ah, I see. So even with people nearby, if they're not part of the work system, the worker is still considered lone from a safety perspective.
Precisely. If something goes wrong, the response is delayed. Their safety depends on their own procedures, maybe a passerby. Both scenarios, the farmer and the postie, fall under lone working policies.
That really broadens the scope. And the types of jobs are huge then. We can kind of group them maybe.
Sure.
Fixed locations and mobile ones.
That's a good way to think about it.
So fixed. You've got people working from home, obviously. Staff maybe in small shops, kiosks, petrol stations late at night.
Yep. Or even in large places like warehouses or factories, but outside normal hours. Think cleaners, maintenance crews, security. They might be the only one on a huge site. Technically alone, despite the building size.
Okay. And then the mobile workers, the ones out and about.
Yeah, that's a massive category. Construction workers on certain tasks, agricultural or forestry workers, delivery drivers, engineers out, servicing equipment.
Rent collectors, social workers doing home visits.
Critically, yes. Those roles often involve going into varied, sometimes unpredictable environments. Each visit, each site potentially carries a different risk profile that needs assessment.
Okay, so we've defined it. We see the scope. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, I think, the specific hazards. When someone is solo, the inherent risks of their job just get amplified, don't they?
Dramatically amplified. The biggest, most immediate danger is often that gap in response time if there's an accident or sudden illness.
Right. Like if you twist your ankle on a busy site, someone sees it, gets first aid, calls for help if needed. Simple.
But if you're alone, in a remote spot, or even just locked in an office after hours, that simple sprain suddenly becomes much more serious. You might not be able to call for help. You might not be found quickly.
A minor incident escalates into a potential emergency purely because of the isolation.
Exactly. And that same amplification applies to personal security, violence.
And yeah, the guidance is pretty explicit about this. Lone workers are often seen as more vulnerable, easier targets.
And there are predictable factors that raise that risk.
Yeah.
Things employers must look for in their assessment.
Such as?
Working in known high-crime areas, for one. Working very late at night or very early in the morning.
Yeah.
Holding a position of authority, maybe like a security guard, can ironically increase risk. Dealing with the public where people might be, under the influence of alcohol or drugs.
And handling cash or valuables, obviously.
Absolutely. Any of those factors means the baseline risk of violence is higher and requires specific controls because the worker is alone.
And it's not just the direct threat of attack, is it? There's a logistical angle, too. Access and egress, getting in and out.
Yes. This is often overlooked. Many lone working tasks happen outside normal hours: cleaning, maintenance, site checks.
So the building is locked up tight for security.
Right. The very things keeping intruders out, locked gates, security codes, alarmed doors, can trap the lone worker in during an emergency.
Like a fire or needing to escape an aggressor.
Exactly. If getting out quickly relies on someone else unlocking a door or procedures designed for a full team, the lone worker is at a serious disadvantage. Evacuation routes need to be considered specifically for them.
Wow. Okay, so those are the immediate, often physical threats. But then there's the longer-term stuff, the psychological side.
Yeah, and this is gaining much more recognition, thankfully, the mental health impact.
You mean loneliness?
Chronic loneliness, yes. If someone spends entire shifts isolated, day after day, and maybe that bleeds into their home life too if they're a remote worker, that's a significant health hazard.
We're talking increased risk of depression, anxiety.
Depression, anxiety, sleep problems, even physical health links like to heart disease. The isolation itself becomes a risk factor the employer needs to consider managing. It's not just about feeling a bit down.
And beyond loneliness, there's the stress of the job itself, magnified by being alone.
Absolutely. Think about the constant vigilance needed by that social worker visiting a potentially volatile client, or a technician working with dangerous machinery miles from backup. That awareness of the risk, day in, day out, creates chronic stress.
Which can lead to anxiety, burnout, impact their confidence?
Definitely. It becomes work-related stress, which, again, falls under the employer's duty of care to manage. It's part of the overall risk picture of lone working.
Okay, so the risks are clear, and they're significant, both physically and mentally. How do employers actually control this? Where do they start?
It always starts with the risk assessment. That's the legal and practical foundation.
And the core principle guiding that assessment.
Is that a lone worker should not be put at greater risk than any other employee doing the same task. Meeting that standard almost always means extra controls are needed specifically for the lone working aspect.
So the first step in control is, can we just not do it? Avoidance.
Exactly. Avoidance is always the best option if possible. Can we use a buddy system for tricky jobs or site visits? Can high-risk tasks be rescheduled to when other people are around?
Makes sense. But if avoidance isn't reasonably practicable?
Then you move to control measures documented within a safe system of work, or SSW.
Right, the SSW. That's the formal procedure, isn't it? Step by step, how to do the job safely, considering the lone working risks.
Precisely. It moves it from hoping for the best to having a planned, thought-through process. And a key part of that policy might be outright prohibition.
Saying some tasks cannot be done alone, ever.
Yes. Company policy should state clearly these specific high-risk activities are forbidden for lone workers. The HSE guidance gives strong examples. Working in a confined space is a classic one.
Why specifically? Because of rescue.
Exactly. If you collapse in a confined space, rescue procedures typically require at least 2 other people immediately, one to coordinate, one perhaps to enter or assist. A lone worker simply cannot be rescued safely or quickly enough.
Got it. What else is prohibited?
Working on or near exposed live electrical conductors.
Obvious shock risk.
Massive shock risk. And again, immediate assistance is vital. Someone to isolate the power, perform CPR, can't rely on self-rescue. Also, some other electrical work might require 2 people for safety reasons, even if not directly on live parts.
So the unifying theme there is the need for immediate collaborative help if things go wrong.
That's the core principle. If the only safe way involves a second person being right there ready to act instantly, then it's a no-go for lone working.
Okay, that's about tasks. What about the people? Vulnerability screening comes up.
Yes, employers have a duty to consider individual worker suitability. Are there factors that make someone particularly vulnerable when working alone?
Like young workers, under 18s.
Definitely. Pregnant workers need specific assessment, and importantly, workers with certain medical conditions.
That sounds tricky, though. How do you screen for medical conditions without falling foul of privacy or discrimination laws?
It needs careful handling, absolutely. The key is establishing objective fitness for task criteria based purely on the specific risks of that lone working role.
So it's not a general health check.
No. It's about whether a known condition, like, say, severe epilepsy that could cause sudden loss of consciousness, or a heart condition prone to blackouts, poses an unacceptably high risk when combined with working alone and being unable to get immediate help.
And who makes that call?
For safety-critical roles, this really needs input from occupational health professionals. They can assess fitness against the specific job demands objectively and advise on necessary adjustments, or in some cases, confirm unsuitability for that particular lone role.
So even selecting who can be a lone worker requires a specific risk-based approach. Assuming they are suitable, then it's about managing them in the field. Supervision becomes key.
Supervision is absolutely crucial, but supervision for lone workers looks very different. The level has to match the risk. Higher risk means more frequent or robust supervision checks.
And it's not just someone physically watching them, right? What methods are used?
It's a whole spectrum. You might have periodic site visits from a supervisor, regular contact via phone, radio, maybe email check-ins.
Standard stuff.
Yeah,
But technology plays a bigger role now.
a much bigger role, especially for higher risk scenarios. You might use electronic monitoring, maybe CCTV if applicable, but the real game changer is the tech designed for when the worker can't actively check in.
You mean if they're incapacitated?
Exactly. A simple phone call check-in relies on the worker being conscious and able to make the call. What if they've fallen and are unconscious or trapped?
So what's the solution?
That's where specialized automatic warning devices come in, often called lone worker devices or apps. They comply with standards like BS 8484 in the UK.
And how do they work?
They typically require the worker to check in, periodically press a button, move the device. If that signal isn't received after a set time,
An alarm is raised automatically.
yes. Or they might have tilt sensors or impact sensors, a man-down function. If the device detects a fall or lack of movement, it can automatically trigger an alert to a monitoring center or supervisor.
So it doesn't rely on the worker actively calling for help. It's a passive safety net.
Precisely. It moves from relying on the worker initiating contact to an automated alert if contact stops. That's a crucial layer of safety for higher risk roles.
That makes a huge difference. What about when the job's finished?
Good point. The system isn't complete without a robust post-task check. There needs to be a reliable process to confirm the worker has finished safely and returned to base or arrived home.
So a supervisor maybe, is responsible for verifying they're okay at the end of the shift or task?
Yes, it creates that final check, closing the loop. It's often a joint responsibility. The worker reports in, the supervisor confirms.
Okay, supervision and monitoring are sorted. What about the worker's own abilities? Training must be vital.
Absolutely critical, especially to prevent panic in unusual situations. Lone workers need to be competent and experienced in their specific role, first and foremost.
And then get extra training for the lone working aspect.
Yes, they need to fully understand the risks of working alone in their job. And training needs to cover practical skills like personal safety, situational awareness, and conflict resolution or de-escalation techniques.
To handle aggression before it potentially becomes violent.
Exactly. Give them the tools to recognize warning signs and manage difficult interactions safely.
And competence also means knowing your limits.
Right.
Yeah.
Hugely important. They need to be trained and empowered to know when a situation has become too risky to handle alone. When to stop work, when to withdraw, when to call for advice or backup from a supervisor.
And know they won't get in trouble for doing so.
That's crucial. Having the confidence and authority to say, stop, this isn't safe alone, is a vital control measure itself.
And for them to make those judgments, they need the right information from the employer beforehand.
Absolutely. Information sharing is a legal duty. The employer has to pass on specific, relevant risk information about the site or the client.
Examples.
Well, for a maintenance engineer visiting a factory alone, they need to know about specific site hazards, dangerous machinery, hazardous substances, known access issues, permit-to-work systems.
Okay. And for someone like a social worker?
Even more critical, they must be informed, where known, about a client's history, previous incidents of violence or aggression, relevant mental health factors that might increase risk, even the presence of dangerous animals at the property.
Balancing privacy with safety again.
It's a difficult balance, but the worker's safety relies on having that information to manage the risk effectively. You can't expect someone to walk into a potentially dangerous situation blind.
So we have assessment, avoidance, prohibition, screening, supervision, monitoring, training, information. It's a whole system, which leads us to what happens when things actually do go wrong. Emergencies.
And these can't be left to chance. Emergency procedures must be thought through, planned, and documented before the lone worker even sets out. You need plans for foreseeable emergencies.
Like what? Give me some scenarios.
Okay, think about a forestry worker injured by machinery deep in woodland with no phone signal. Or a lift engineer getting stranded in a shaft after hours. Or a care worker facing a violent assault during a home visit.
Very different situations, all needing a specific plan.
Exactly. The procedures need to cover several key things. First, how is the alarm raised? How does the call for help get initiated?
Especially if they can't speak freely.
Right. This might involve using those automatic devices we mentioned, or maybe covert panic alarms, perhaps pre-agreed code words during a phone call if they feel threatened but can still talk.
Okay, the alarm is raised. Then what?
Who responds? You need to identify the first responders. Is it a supervisor, a dedicated security team, an external monitoring service? And what kit do they need? Maybe specialized access equipment, satellite phones for remote areas, trauma first aid kits?
And linking up with the professionals.
Essential. The plan needs clear steps for liaising with police, fire service, ambulance, maybe even mountain rescue, depending on the job. How is information passed quickly and accurately?
And of course, first aid.
Absolutely. The lone worker needs access to adequate first aid facilities, which usually means a suitable mobile kit, and they need the training to use it, potentially for self-treatment if possible, while waiting for help.
Wow. It really is a comprehensive system needed. So pulling all this together for you, our listeners, the main takeaway seems to be that managing lone working isn't just a single action. It's not just giving someone a mobile phone.
Not even close. It's a multi-layered strategy. It starts with policy prohibiting the truly dangerous stuff. Then it's about avoiding lone working if you can, through teamwork or rescheduling.
Then screening people properly for suitability. And then, if lone working is necessary, building that robust, safe system of work.
Which includes tailored supervision, reliable monitoring, especially that automatic alert capability, thorough training, focused on self-reliance and risk recognition, plus really detailed information sharing.
And finally, having those pre-planned, practiced emergency procedures ready to go for when the worst happens. It's systemic.
It has to be. It's about clear accountability at every level, layered controls, and using technology smartly. Which actually leads to an interesting final thought building on that tech aspect.
Right.
We've talked about the importance of monitoring technology like devices meeting BS 8484 for physical safety, and we've talked about the mental health risks of chronic isolation. So here's something to ponder. How might the very use of that constant monitoring designed to keep someone physically safe potentially add to their psychological burden? Could feeling constantly tracked or the anxiety about missing a check-in signal inadvertently increase stress and compound the isolation, even as it reduces physical risk?
That's a fascinating challenge, managing the potential invisible risks created by the technology we use to solve the visible ones. A perfect point to reflect on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.